So I want to quickly show the tools Slicer has for working with meshes. They're not as extensive as other programs like MeshLab or Blender, but they're nice and easy to use for when you don't want to disrupt a workflow in Slicer. So you'll find these under the Surface Toolbox if you go to the Surface Models menu and then Surface Toolbox, and you can see all the different options right here. I'm just going to pick a few out. So I'll create a new model. I don't want to overwrite my old one in case this does something I don't like. So I'll just call this one model. So you can see all the options here. I'm going to highlight just a few of them and one specifically I would use them. Clean and decimate, I think, can be helpful when you've just created a model from a segmentation in Slicer and you're going to export it. Clean will remove unreferenced vertices and some other like wonky geometry. If I run it now by clicking on it and then clicking apply, you'll see the color changes, but it didn't seem like much else changed. That's because a new model was created that would have all of those little wonky issues fixed, or at least most of them. But that won't be a visible change unless there's something really, really wrong. The other step I would take before exporting from Slicer is to decimate the mesh. The mesh created from segmentation oftentimes is going to be really, really high poly, and that high poly count isn't necessarily corresponding to high resolution so much as it just might be artifacts or other things. That and really high poly models can end up causing problems later down the line, so even a sort of low level decimation can help a lot. So say I want to decimate this model to 70%, pick that, click apply, and now you'll see the two models intersecting each other, the original one and the decimated one. If we scroll up on the yellow, which is the decimated one, you can actually see a little bit of the polyfaces with the green mesh poking through. But if I turn off the original green mesh, you can see that this has retained most of the important geometry. Given how low poly count the teeth are now, maybe I would go back and redo it at 80 or 90%, but that's why you create the mesh you create a new mesh whenever you run any of these processes so that you have the option to redo. So the last one I want to highlight is the mirror tool, which is really useful for geometric morphometrics, because if you're landmarking just the left or right side of something and you have a specimen where it's broken on that side, it's very easy to just mirror whatever you're looking at, click apply. It's disappeared out of frame because it's translated around its origin, which is not in the middle of it, but now I have a mirror image of that tooth row. So Slicer has a few other tools for modeling. Most of what you're going to want to do is in this, but the one other thing that may be of interest is this dynamic modeler. And what this lets you do that might be easier here than in Blender or MeshLab is to slice meshes by a specific plane or curve. So I created this plane earlier to specifically bisect this tooth and this part of the jaw from the other side. You could also use curves to do this. And then you can go to the dynamic modeler, create a plane cut or whatever it is you want to do. So you'll just want to tell Slicer the model whatever plane you're cutting with. You can use more than one, but I'm just going to use one. Then the outputs, which you'll get one for both the positive side and the negative side. So each side will become its own mesh. All right, so it didn't look like anything happened at first because we've got both halves of the model covered in green. But once I turn off the segment 1 model, I can toggle these two new models on and off, and we can see that they both have been created and we can do whatever we want further with them. So whether or not you use these tools will really depend on what your workflow looks like and what you need to do with your models, but they are helpful if you have some basic steps you need to take and you don't want to be switching software from Slicer to Blender to MeshLab.